Hi, it's January 31st. You gotta love having a chair in the greenhouse. The wind is blowing like mad outside. Like to plant something, but we're out of table space. So we're going to spend the afternoon showing you how to transform pallets into workbenches. So let's go ahead and take a look at what you can do with a pallet. First off, you're going to need to strip off any old hardware. You're going to have to make sure all the boards are secure. Make sure your spacing is right on the top. A lot of them have some little slots. If you get an extra pallet or two, a lot of the wood is about the same size. You can strip one down and fill in gaps on another just to suit your purposes. So where do you get pallets? Let me tell you a little secret about manufacturers. They bring in tons of raw material every day on pallets so they can easily move it around with forklifts. Most manufacturing companies these days have a waste reduction program. Now most companies try to return as many of the pallets to their vendors as possible, but they get such a large variety of material from so many different places, sometimes it just is not possible. And then they have to pay to have it hauled off. This is where you can come in. The easiest way to go about getting free pallets is look in your area for some of the larger manufacturers. It really doesn't matter what they make. They're all going to have some kind of pallets. Just call the front desk and ask them who's in charge of waste management. They'll usually put you right through. And they'll usually be pretty happy if you're willing to take a pickup load or two. You can just say who you are and what you want to use them for. Don't make up any weird stories. All I said is, I'm Smalley and I want to build my wife a compost pile for Christmas. The guy fell over laughing. Then I said, no, I'm serious, and I can take a pickup load off your hands. All I had to do was drive in and they loaded for me. It's that simple. Now if you got a couple neighbors or you're a member of a gardening group, they'll usually be pretty happy if you can take a couple pickup loads off their hands. They really do have to pay to have some of that stuff hauled off, and it does reduce their waste, and it helps recycle. The cool thing about building with pallets is you can make it your size. You can make it to fit what you want to do. If your back gets sore from leaning over a little bit, or the counter's a little too tall for you, you can adjust it for your workbenches in the greenhouse. I'm a tall person and I like them a little taller than most people, but that just makes it comfortable for me to work on. That's the first thing. You want to know how tall you want your work surface, and that way you can cut your legs. Usually your tables are going to be on a level surface. Since I'm on this slope, my legs are going to be a little different, but the principle is exactly the same. If you've ever played with Legos, you can get very creative on how you want to stack your pallets. Now you can use pallets as the legs, but I've got some cheap 2x4s, and we're going to go ahead and cut those and add those to the pallets to make legs. Now the bench that I made the other day that we planted the onions on, that's just a straight bench. And I'll show you how I put that together. I'll also show you how I'm going to do my potting bench. Now you've got a couple choices here. One, you can take these bottom boards off, or you can take the pallet completely apart, and that gives you extra lumber to fill in any gaps that you might not like. I don't mind having the gaps on the top, so I'm just going to secure this one back down. Okay, let's take a look at some of the tools that you're going to need for this little project. A couple clamps always come in handy. You don't actually need them, but they really do help. You want to have a hammer and a couple different kind of crowbars depending on how much work you're going to do on the pallets. You're going to want to have a tape measure and a square. A pencil always comes in good. Some sort of saw, some sort of drill, and then always your safety glasses. If you're going to do any kind of cutting, any kind of fastening, you want to have some safety glasses. This process is going to be the same whether you do, if you're connecting 1, 2, or 3 together. Doesn't matter. When you're looking at this, all these boards run exactly the same, so I kind of like this orientation. It really doesn't matter. Having all the wood together really doesn't make a difference. It makes it look a little nicer, I guess. But you take the pallets that you can get. Now when you look at this, these 2x4s are the same size. The top and the bottom wood are the same size. So you just want to have it flushed up. Since we know our material's the same size, what we want to do is make sure our 2x4s are flush. This is where a clamp comes in handy. Now I'm not working off of a very level surface, so there's a little gap there. The clamp will help pull that together. Use one clamp on each side. You're going to want these good and snug. Now you can stand it back up, check the bottom. We're good and flush all the way around. You want to make sure you're flush right here. That's where tapping, you can use your hammer to tap that in. As long as you're flush on top and flush in the front, you're good to go. And lay that back down. You want to make sure that whatever hardware you're using will go at least halfway through the other side. We're going to come through both directions to fasten in a couple spots. You can make a pilot hole if you like, but most of these power drivers are pretty good. And as long as you stay straight and don't get all bent out of shape, it should go right on in. Then I like to take right at the center line of the 2x4 at an angle. Drives it down into the other one. That's all there is to it. Just remove your clamps. Stand it back up to double check. Good and flush. So there's the top part of our next table. See what kind of slope I'm on here. I want it about there. I like my workbench just about, 3'9". Go about 3'8". Make a mark. 3'8". Make a mark. Square. Mark a line. Square. Mark a line. We can go back from the other way also. We need a couple of these legs. Now if we had a chop saw, we could set up a jig, cut the first one, and not have to make all the marks. But since I don't have a fancy chop saw, we'll go old school. See, that's the beauty. You can use your pallet as a workbench. Now, you want to cut on the outside of the lines. There you go, you got 6 legs. That's where the clamps come in handy. I'll just go ahead and put one screw in. You take your square. With just one screw in, you can move it pretty good. Take your clamp. Once you're square and you're happy, clamp it down again. Put your second screw in. See, the beauty about doing this, you can make it up as you go. Normally you'd have some bracing to hold these square, but we're going to put a shelf in and that's going to act as our bracing. This is where modifying comes in really handy. let's take a look at something else. We may not be able to do this in a space that we've got. We may just do it however we're going to do it. 7'3". Now you kind of got to go with what you got. My idea was to have the potting soil just a little lower and off to the side. That ought to work just fine. So let's go ahead and just secure this. Sort of a scary looking bench at this point. Well, give me a second. We got it pretty much where we want it. So I'm telling you, you don't have to be precise. It's just a workbench. Gives it a little more rigidity. Cleans that up a little bit. Our 2x4 is just about in half there. Now anytime you have unsupported legs, you want to have some kind of bracing across them. Being down in this back corner, we don't have to be real precise on our measurements as long as the legs are braced up. And then for good measure, just go ahead and give it a little anchor. Well, there you go. There's the potting table. So that's my workbench on the hill. The construction methods are basically the same. Flush your pallets up, bolt them or screw them or nail them together. Square up the legs. Put some bracing around the legs. In this case, we put another shelf. On the far end, we put bracing at the bottom. Put a little face there in the middle. That's basically all you have to do. You saw the tools. Clamps. Clamps always come in handy. We'll be back at it planting up a bunch of cold weather crops here shortly. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of your family, and God bless you. Come on, let's plant. Let's go plant garden.